All right. Hello, dear ones. Let's talk relationship today, or relationships, multiples. Because when we think about it, a lot of things in our life are based on having some kind of relationship with something. And it starts with ourselves. And it sometimes may feel contradicting to really trying to manage your love relationship, your work relationship, and trying to push hard to fix them and make them work in the way that you think they're supposed to be working, trying to tailor your external relationships to your desires. And often that becomes a very hard work. It becomes so resisting, and you keep walking into the brick wall, just grinding through it, but the wall is not moving. And one of the most interesting principles that I have discovered for myself, and I encourage you to explore, is the principle that as within, so without. So if you're not happy with your relationships externally, look at how your relationship is with yourself inside yourself. How many conflicting thoughts or behaviors that you have that may be contradicting your own state of coherence. It may not be easy to start noticing it unless you have actually experienced the mirror principle, is another way it's called, where you can look into other person's eyes and you know that your soul is so connected that it doesn't necessarily mean that you connected or related or in love with that person, but when you are looking into their eyes, you know that the source is looking right at you. And that's why they say that the eyes are the gates to soul, because in the depths of your eye, you can see so deep, and the truth is streaming from your core out through your mind, outward externally, and then you start witnessing. So every single person that surrounds you, or every single peer that you have, even strangers that you walk by in the street, are often the reflection of what's happening within you and an opportunity for you to know yourself better. And this is something that I was completely ignorant about. And that was, yeah, I know the principle as within, so without, but it never settled in. I never explored what it was like to feel that way. And then when I felt it, and it was a long time when I was experiencing that intense feeling of unity that sometimes was even scary, because I didn't know how to maintain that feeling. I felt like I was naked all the time and people looking at me, that everyone can read my thoughts, everyone can feel my feelings, where, as a matter of fact, I was discovering how empathetic I was in catching on to other people's feelings, because when you allow yourself to accept the idea that your internal world projects external reality, like you're literally a projector, then suddenly you become responsible for what you're seeing. And when you're seeing externally something that you don't like and you want to fix it, you don't necessarily always think like, oh, I have to work on myself. You think the world is fucked up. You think that you need to do something for the world to be a better place so you can live with in this world in peace. And we get so caught up because external is so tangible, so delicious, and it feels so real, that we yet neglect our own self-awareness, understanding of selves, understanding that our relationships with our loved ones, with our work, with our career, with the money, with anything, first starts with us. I give you a few examples of how I discovered it within myself, and maybe it will help you to also tap into more of the self-awareness, more of the self-discovery, because when you take the ownership of knowing that you are not perfect and you are will be making hilarious, ridiculous mistakes, and being able to forgive yourself and allow yourself to grow because of this and evolve, accept that, then your external environment actually places all the puzzle pieces in a way that is in tune with who you are. And it is a process. It's not always like, oh, fixed right now. No, you'll have to go through knowing what are you exploring. So this is an example. I was in argument with my boyfriend. Um, and we um, came to a point where I was just hysterical. I don't remember. I was upset about something, uh, being ignored or being scolded on something, and of course my ego is freaking out. And then that at some point the narcissist topic was hot in my informational feed, and all the narcissist things start coming up, like on the YouTube. Just somebody would talk about like, oh, I just left this relationship, I was dating a narcissist, and I'm like, am I having a narcissistic relationship? Like, is my boyfriend a narcissist? Should I break the relationship? And then suddenly a thought came into my mind. Well, if I am a piece of consciousness, of awareness, sitting inside this body, using this brain to play around with these thoughts, and it's not necessarily that other people hearing my thoughts, they have their own thoughts, they have their own bubbles with their own thoughts, and I have my own bubble with my own thoughts. And if my thought bubble is infested with the thoughts of narcissism or having narcissistic behavior, and I'm inside of myself trying to blame others for being a narcissist, then it's just an extra it's just extra steps to blame yourself, pretending that it's not you. Meaning I was blaming myself for being a narcissist, not noticing that it's me who's being a narcissist, blaming myself for being a narcissist. And it was such a fractal when you're looking at the visualization of a fractal, and it has the same pattern and keeps going into the loop and finds it in its own pattern again. This is how it felt. I like flown into it, and I realized, like, god dang it, I am the one who's acting like a narcissist. And suddenly I started having realizations why that happened, where it came through, the childhood memories came up, things bubbled up that I realized that, oh, I have no one to blame. That's just me. I'm the cause of everything. I'm the cause of my own unhappiness. And ever since that moment, that subsided. And there is still part of me that the ego is holding on to the personality. However, it's not as intense. Now, I've been able, through reasoning and negotiating with my ego, get to the point where it's not stressing about losing its identity. It's softening into allowing the possibility that maybe identity is not necessarily the thing to be so worried and so grasping on. Then a couple other experiences. Just recently, I felt in my relationship that I wasn't being listened to, as I'm going through a coaching program that is very important to me, because I am currently undergoing a healing, which I wouldn't call spontaneous healing, but because I'm working on negotiating within my mind, body, and spirit, I'm learning to observe my emotions. I'm learning to listen to my own physical body. And sometimes I know that even though I'm listening, I'm not taking certain steps to actually know what's right. For example, drinking coffee. I took a break from drinking coffee. I went back to drinking coffee again, even though now I have learned that it is very impactful on your fascia, and it's going to be a whole different topic we're going to discuss. Nevertheless, so in my relationship, I felt that I haven't been listened to, even though I shared what I'm working on. I shared what's important for me. We had few conversations about what I'm interested in and why is it inspiring to me, because this is the work that I am undergoing myself, and I know that there are other people who coming to the awakening not knowing exactly what's happening, and their body is vibrating, and there is just epiphanies coming through, and sometimes downloads. And I was confused in my journey, and I couldn't find anybody at the time as I was searching. I couldn't find a single person who could explain to me what's happening. Now, when I've accepted it and I just allow it to experience it, I was like, okay, fine. I don't know what's happening. Let it just happen. Suddenly, I started receiving the explanations for it. So when I felt unheard in my, or not listened to in my relationship, I did get upset first. However, I also knew that this is something for me to discover. And when I went to meditate on it, and I went before bed, I was thinking, where is me in that equation? It's not that I'm upset that someone didn't listen to me sharing my story, but do I really listen to my own body and what it tells me, that what is right for me? Because sometimes I listen to it and making the old decision that keeps not serving me. Same story with the coffee. I know it feels good in the moment, but now I know it destroys fascia. What is my priority? Will I be willing to listen to my body, knowing that fascia is more important for me to be a restorative? And if coffee is dehydrating fascia so quickly, I need to have some time to recover it, because I know that over time, my relationship with coffee can be diluted. I don't have to have it. And if I allow my fascia to restore itself naturally, then it will actually be feeding me with more nutrients and well-being and with more vitality overall in the long run, that I don't need to depend on coffee. Yes, it's fun to drink sometimes, but it doesn't have to be the daily ritual. None of it does, except maybe meditation. But it's also a thing to discipline yourself into, without being harsh on yourself, without being angry with yourself, without beating yourself up, because that contradicts the entire progress of you building a relationship with yourself. And yes, it's important to build relationships with other people, but it's also important that the relationship with other people doesn't define who you are. Only your relationship with yourself defines what kind of relationships you will have with other people. Because if you're living in unhappy marriage, then you brought yourself into that situation. You got caught up in certain patterns that keep you unhappy. So then if you want to change that relationship or improve that relationship or have a different relationship, the most you can do is to become so in tune with yourself that either your external relationship will follow up and tailor itself to how you feel, whether that relationship will just fall off and the new one stepped in. So literally, you don't necessarily have to change anything. All you have to do is to learn to bring yourself to the awareness of what's within, the same thing as without. Meaning, whatever you're observing externally is most likely a thing inside of your psyche. If you really unhappy about your work situation, then what kind of work are you doing inside yourself that brings you to equanimity, to feel better? And if you don't do any work inside yourself to bring yourself to equanimity, then your external work will reflect that too. And the reason I also prioritize relationships over anything really is because any anything that we live with is a relationship. Relationship with money. If you're reading money books, you're probably aware of that exercise where you take your money on a date and you tell your money, as it was a person that you're dating, how you truly feel about it. Whether you tell them, I love you so much, but you're never enough. I want to have more of you, but you're never available. This is your relationship with money. Whether you tell your money that I really love and appreciate you when you're staying with me because it makes me feel secure. And I really love and appreciate you when you can allow me, you are here for me to let me get the thing that I desire because we both know together that will make both of us feel good. Because money also meant to be in rotation. It meant to serve other people. It meant to feed other families. If we're spending money and we feel upset about spending our money, that means we're diminishing the well-being of other people who will receive that money eventually. If you have to buy something that you really excited about it, but you don't find it useful, but you buy it anyways, try to reframe that thinking that not only the item that you're buying making you feel happy, but it also provides a paycheck for someone else, and it feeds someone else, and it brings happiness to someone else. Maybe the thing that you have is not that valuable, and maybe you feel like blaming yourself for buying that thing. Just remember that relationship of money being servant to someone else as well, just that thought alone is creating a better relationship within you towards collective, knowing that other person will benefit from it. Because sometimes we act on an impulse that doesn't come from our mind, it comes from our soul, it comes from our collective unconscious, for some reason that came through, and it serves you. And yes, there is a matter of being disciplined in your mind and your emotions, and there is a matter of being absolutely chaotic in your impulses. And there is also a fine line to observe, and probably we'll discuss later. But I want you to focus on relationship with yourself. Look at the relationships you have with your parents. Look at the relationships you have with your loved ones. Look at the relationships you have with your coworkers. And if you are witnessing any discrepancies there, ask yourself, what is it I am vibrating? What is it that I am not being consistent with my own self that now reflects in this way that I don't get to enjoy relationships outside of myself? It's probably a hefty topic, and I will be creating a workshop around this as a somatic work and a personal healing. I just want to encourage you to be self-aware. It feels good and it feels authentic. The more we dive into self-awareness, the easier it becomes to forgive ourselves, forgive others, be at peace, and it feels really good. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Next time.